There's a locked-in RB1 in San Francisco. I'm Joe Dolan, and this is the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup for Wednesday, September 21st, 2022.
It's time for the FantasyPoints.com Daily Lineup. Staying on top of the latest news and updates around the NFL. Rise and shine, folks. We're taking the field. Here's your host, FantasyPoints.com's Joe Dolan.
Starting at quarterback today, behind a very bad offensive line, is the Bengals' Joe Burrow. So that offensive line that was the Bengals' downfall in Super Bowl 56. The same offensive line that the Bengals spent a lot of money to upgrade. Yeah. The Bengals lost to a Cowboys team starting Cooper Rush at quarterback in week 2, the week after losing to a Steelers team starting Mitchell Trubisky in week 1. And that's largely because Burrow has taken 13 sacks in those two games. Against the Cowboys, Burrow went 24 of 36 for 199 yards and a touchdown. Now, most amazingly, he didn't turn the ball over, given how constantly under siege he was. Micah Parsons had right tackle La'el Collins in hell on Sunday. I guess it was a Cowboys revenge game against Collins. And though Burrow won't be facing a Parsons or a TJ Watt every week, this thing has to get fixed. The Bengals have way too much talent on offense to be averaging 3.8 yards per play as they did in week 2. And the assessment here is that they will be better. They just have to be. I can't imagine a world where they're not. It would be really depressing. But for fantasy, you drafted Burrow to be a slam dunk, don't think about him starter. And that's not what he is right now. Nonetheless, there are few situations in which a team has its back against the wall harder than an 0-2 team trying to avoid falling to 0-3. There will be a lot of money coming in on the Bengals this week against the Jets. Now, mind you, they're starting Joe Flacco at quarterback. But this is a team that did lose to Mitchell Trubisky and Cooper Rush. In our first running back spot, we have someone you need to start every week. Jeff Wilson took over as the San Francisco 49ers lead back in week 2, with Elijah Mitchell expected to miss through at least their week 9 bye with a knee injury. Now, Wilson posted a team-high 18 carries for 84 yards rushing and 2 catches for 19 yards receiving on a 49% snap share in week 2. But he got sniped twice at the 1-yard line by Kyle Juszczyk and Jimmy Garoppolo. Third-round pick Tyrion Davis-Price also saw significant work behind Wilson with 14 carries for 33 yards rushing and a 39% snap share. But Davis-Price went down against the Seahawks with a high ankle sprain and should miss a number of weeks. And Wilson is now the unquestioned top dog in a backfield that has become significantly unmuddied because of injuries. Right now, the only healthy backs on the active roster are Wilson, UDFA Jordan Mason, and veteran Marlon Mack, who got the call-up from the practice squad. Wilson is a weekly starter for fantasy. There shouldn't even be questions about it. While Mason and Mack are wing and a prayer end-of-bench stashes right now. In our second running back spot, we may have a changing of the guard. Cowboys fans and a good bit of fantasy observers have been hooting and hollering for over a year that the Cowboys need to use Ezekiel Elliott less and the more explosive Tony Pollard more. And sometimes we do like to give coaches the benefit of the doubt. After all, those coaches are around the players every day and know their strengths and weaknesses by heart. But also, coaches are sometimes wrong. Very wrong. And it's looking like they're beginning to acknowledge that in Dallas. It can be easily argued that Pollard was the Cowboys' best offensive player in their win against the Bengals in week 2. Pollard played just 24 snaps, but he got an opportunity on 16 of them with 9 carries and 7 targets. He had 9 carries for 43 yards and a score with 4 catches for 55 yards. He had an explosive 46-yard reception down the left sideline that was initially called a touchdown, but was reversed on replay. And then Mike McCarthy did something unexpected. As opposed to giving Zeke, the Cowboys' typical goal line back, the opportunity to clean up the garbage, he gave Pollard the ball on the very next play, and Pollard plunged it right in. Meanwhile, Zeke turned his 16 opportunities into 49 yards. Through 2 games, he has -7 yards receiving. His snap share was still high in week 2, up to 67% from 58% in week 1 when the Cowboys were trailing the entire game. But if there is ever a game to highlight the contrast in styles and effectiveness, this one was it. Zeke is a highly volatile running back too right now. He might be at the point of his career where he's touchdown dependent, and he has 0 of them right now. As for Pollard, he is a usable flex with upside, especially in games the Cowboys are projected to be playing from behind. In our first wide receiver spot, we have someone who is paid just the right amount, apparently. Through 2 weeks of the NFL season, it has become apparent who Trevor Lawrence's favorite target is. Now, it doesn't come as much of a surprise that Christian Kirk has been force-fed the ball. After all, the Jaguars paid him a massive contract this offseason. However, his ADP never moved a whole lot, mostly because a lot of folks, and I certainly got in on it too, were making fun of the contract that the Jags gave Kirk, as opposed to seeing why the Jags would pay Kirk. Kirk has led all Jaguars wide receivers in targets in each of the past 2 weeks. He's hauled in 12 of his 18 targets for a total of 195 yards and a pair of touchdowns, both of which came against the Colts on Sunday. So he now has a 100-yard game and a multi-TD game to his name in 2 games with the Jaguars. Not bad. Kirk is the wide receiver 19 in Scott Barrett's expected fantasy points, a great feature of the site, by the way, ahead of such notable names as A.J. Brown, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, DK Metcalf, and more. He's getting a lot of targets and a lot of high-calorie targets to boot. Kirk should be a high-floor option every week as the Jaguars' unquestioned number 1 wide receiver. I'm kicking myself that I didn't draft more of him. At our other wide receiver spot, we have someone who isn't getting the targets we expected. Now, if we were to tell you in July that Joe Flacco would be leading the NFL in pass attempts through 2 weeks, you likely would have canceled your subscription to the website. But in the event you didn't, one of your first orders of business would have been assuming that second-year receiver Elijah Moore would be a fantasy football stud. After all, he averaged 27.9 fantasy points per game in games played with Joe Flacco last season. But despite Flacco's 103 pass attempts in 2 games, Moore has just 12 targets and 8 catches for 90 yards. Among Jets, like among all of his teammates, he is 6th in PPR fantasy points as a receiver alone. So Michael Carter and Breece Hall are ahead of him, but that's not even counting their rushing production. Of course, this is likely a blip on the radar. Moore has led the Jet receivers in snaps and routes run in each of the first 2 games. But if rookie wideout Garrett Wilson commands more snaps and targets, he should. And rookie running back Breece Hall commands more snaps and carries, he should. And the Jets aren't playing in such extreme game scripts. And Zach Wilson returns to the lineup. Yeah, you see there are a lot of variables here that could really send things by the wayside. Moore is a volatile wide receiver 3 for the time being. You can't drop him. But there might be somebody on your bench that you trust more at this point, and that's very sad. In our flex spot, we have an update on Dalton Schultz. Now, the Cowboys tight end caught just 2 of his 4 targets for 18 yards in week 2, a week after catching 7 passes for 61 yards in the Cowboys opener. He also lost a fumble as the Cowboys were going in for a potential dagger score, and, well, I'm burying the lead here, he left the game with a knee injury. Now, ESPN's Todd Archer is reporting it as a PCL injury. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said Schultz is questionable for Monday night against the Giants, which obviously means you might have to bench him because, he plays on Monday night and that's the last game of the week. But it shouldn't cause him to miss more than that if he does. We'll see how he works this week. My assessment is it's not long-term, Jerry Jones said. Now, here's what our Dr. Edwin Porras had to say. The average amount of time missed by NCAA offensive players with PCL injuries is 2.5 games. Professional pass catchers who have dealt with this injury are Andre Ellington, who missed 3 games, and Eric Decker, who missed just 1 game. Now, you also might remember that Ezekiel Elliott played through the injury last year and was clearly limited by it. He lost whatever explosion he had left. Now, we need to watch this, but it would be a major blow to an already thin fantasy position if Dalton Schultz is to miss any time. Schultz is a full-time player. He played every offensive snap in week 1 and every snap before he got hurt in week 2. So this could be a potentially valuable fantasy role for rookie Jake Ferguson if Schultz can't play in week 3 or beyond. I'm Joe Dolan. This has been the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup. Just remember to like the video, hit the thumbs up, comment on the video, subscribe to the Fantasy Points channel for the daily lineup and all of our other videos. Now, as injuries and news pile up, as you're hearing in this program, you need to adjust your fantasy rosters, and that is where fantasypoints.com comes in. If you're looking for the best waiver, trade, start sit advice, our standard package is going to cover all your bases. But if you're a DFS nut or you make bets like prop bets against the spread bets, over under bets, our premium package is the one for you. But both packages give you access to our subscriber Discord with a direct line to our staff and a growing and blossoming community. It is a very underutilized feature among Fantasy Point subscribers. It's amazing how many people don't know about this. Under 10% of our users are in our subscriber Discord. They should really get on that. Whatever you choose, use code lineup22, and that'll get you an extra 10% off any package. I'll talk to you tomorrow, everyone.